base case prediction for Bitcoin by 2035 is $1.3 million US. So that's like nearing the $2 million AUD mark in a 10-year time frame. That from here would be a 28.3% annual growth rate.
It's a really weird one to explain if you haven't heard of WorldCoin before. Essentially, they're looking to create a database on the blockchain that verifies if you're human, which sounds actually quite dystopian when you think about it.
Are you saying that we could see the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana on the New York Stock Exchange?
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast, and he's back. Ted.
Hey, Pat.
Was that a bit loud for you?
That was very enthusiastic. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. But
see, you're rusty. You've been away. You've been relaxing for too long.
Mate, it's been a great little break, but you held it down while I was gone. You had some really good guests on. The content was fantastic.
Thank you.
It was like the revolving door of tapping to crypto. You had Greenie.
Hey, Greenie.
Ben Simpson, Callum from FinCrime in the office, Tommy as well filled in, Greg
back on the show, but for us now, so massive. On our side of the couch.
I'm surprised we got a call up.
Yeah, he's it's big boots to fill, so we had to get all the showstoppers in, mate.
Absolutely, but well done to you. You held it down.
It was good. Any key takeaways from the holiday? Anything we should all know about? The listeners should be aware of if they're heading over to Turkey.
Greece is very expensive.
Yep.
I don't know if that's a huge revelation. Turkey is a good country.
Yep.
Don't wear like a rival football team's jersey in like the in the Galatasaray area. I made that mistake.
What happened to you?
Well, I think if I wasn't surrounded by people in the home team jersey, I would have been bashed to death. So
okay, well. There you go.
That would be my biggest takeaway.
Everyone could take that away. They've got at least something to start the show off, right?
Absolutely.
This week, we're going to dive into some pretty big developments in the space, I feel. We're going to unpack one of the major giants in the fund space in the US. They've just released a massive report with some predictions. We all love a good predictions report, so we're going to dive into that one, which is great.
Yep, so it's a 10-year prediction. So we're looking forward to 2035, and they're looking at Bitcoin price, they're looking at volatility, they're looking at correlation to stocks. They give some reasons why they make the prediction, and it's not just like have a stab in the dark.
A bit different from us, yeah.
There's a lot of sort of research behind it. So I think we're going to really unpack that, so it's really juicy.
There you go, guys. You got that coming up. We're going to dive into a bit of a highlight into some top movers. There's some new players on the block, which I think would be good to cover them and why they might be showing triple-digit gains this week. And I'll also just, as a little bit of an adder, show how one of the ways that I screen and look for meme coins. I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, but there are some ways technically, fundamentally, that you can easily, by the end of this episode, go home and work out for yourself what's moving in the market for a good reason. So I'm excited to share that one with everyone. But other than that, we've got some regulation news as well. Just in a nutshell, good news actually resulting in good price movements across the board, which, September's been historically, it's a bit of a meme. September's always quite quiet. It's always red.
Is September a meme? The month?
Well, it's like wake me up when September ends is like the common thing going around on crypto Twitter or crypto X.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll dive into some of that too. But I think let's kick it off with those top movers, right? So in the last 7 days, the top three, they're all pretty interesting and for different reasons. So I've got MYX Finance, ticker MYX, currently up 309% in the last 24 hours. And up 1,260% in the last 7 days.
Yes, so what is this? It's now in the top 100 coins, so it obviously wasn't there about a week ago.
No.
Tell me about this project.
So this is a good example of crypto maybe attracting people for potentially the wrong reasons. Okay. I think this is my personal opinion. I could get absolutely rinsed by MYX Finance after this, but it's essentially a trading platform. So they operate on the BNB network. It's similar to things like Hyperliquid we've seen. Obviously subtleties and differences, but it's just a trading venue on chain.
What's wrong with that?
Well, that's not necessarily what's wrong with it, but recently they've had a massive token unlock. So to the point of 39.36 million tokens, which is about 4% of their total supply, have just been unlocked. And it's something I've sort of cautioned internally within my own circles and even just people that I sort of speak to all the time. Like, whenever you see these massive token unlocks, they're not necessarily bullish or bearish, but it's what happens around when these events are happening that is a bit of an interesting sign. So obviously this huge surge can essentially just be market manipulation. Not that that's a bad thing, but you can essentially, if you were a token holder with big size, you could pay someone to help run up the price, right? Obviously, that is a service and a fee. It's quite common even in traditional markets, the stock market. It's quite famous for insider pools doing similar things. So it's no different to how markets are meant to operate. But I mean, we're basically seeing a coin that's, let's call it relatively unknown, just all of a sudden just shoot through the hoops, right? And obviously, with the market being a little bit, so green and excitable lately, there's obviously been a lot of people maybe jumping onto this one, and a lot of them may have made money. Yep. But I feel like this is one of those ones. If you jump on now, you're probably just the exit liquidity.
Yeah, right.
For the time being, unless there's some other big, massive partnership they're going to announce or something like that. There really wasn't anything I could find scouring the news. So if you're a listener and you're an MYX fan for some reason, let us know if something's different. But
the interesting thing there is the fact that it's on the BNB chain, right? We've seen so much focus on Ethereum, particularly in the last couple of months. And then before that, like Solana, Hyperliquid, I suppose, is its own sort of network, right? Yeah. What else? We've seen Sui, but BNB was, had a lot of action in the last bull market, particularly because it was just very accessible. Yeah. But it's been like the coin has been doing well recently, but the network itself, from my understanding, has been pretty quiet lately. So it's good to see that it's getting a bit of action. Obviously, every one of those large layer one networks is competing for market share.
That's right.
And so the fact that they've got a large trading platform, it seems, in MYX Finance is a good sign for them.
It is, and it'll be interesting to see, I guess, from here if it can sustain. It's hard to imagine this thing keep going up 1,000% every 30 days, right? Like we have seen coins do that in the past, but I wouldn't sort of bet the family farm thinking it's going to happen again. Now, the second one we're seeing on the top movers in the last 7 days. Just to call out Memecore. So I've never really heard of this coin before till today, and I'm sure maybe some of the other listeners might have heard of this one. Ticker is just M, which I thought was pretty interesting, just a single letter M. But it's essentially trying to basically revolutionize the way that we're, go about meme coins. So they're their own layer one, which means they're making their own infrastructure, so starting from scratch, and they're looking to basically build the foundation of what they call Meme 2.0. So we've all been aware recently with the whole pump.fun ecosystem really going crazy. The whole nature of meme coins has really turned into almost mercenary-like. It's just pump, dump, pump, dump. It's really hard to find meme coins like back in the day when they would start. Generally, people would hold them. Now there's just so many. Everyone's just jumping from one ship to another and whatever's hot, right? So their whole idea is to build coins where they reward people for holding, create staking environments, create even just user pools where there's revenue shares with meme coins. So more of a reason to hold on to meme coins. So I think it's quite an interesting notion. See if it's going to stick or not. I think we'll see. But this one, from what I can tell so far, it's just general accumulation activity so far. Yeah. A lot of people probably saying it's potentially overpriced right now, but I think it'd be one to just keep an eye on, just to see if there is just the market's sort of mind share is attracted to that idea of, hey, we need to change the way we think about meme coins potentially.
Yep, I might go have a look at the platform, see if there's any juicy memes on there.
Yeah.
Usually, I've taken a look at pump.fun and bonk.fun or let's bonk.fun, and the memes that people launch on there are just absolutely trash. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a bit of a difference here, where people are actually trying to launch memes with a bit of longevity about them, or if they're just trying to go for that quick pump and dump.
Yeah, well, we saw it, right? Things blew up. That was just what the hell, right? Peanut the squirrel. Remember that blowing up?
Yeah,
it was crazy. All right. So, and the last one I wanted to shout out was WorldCoin, WLD. So, very famously, Sam Altman's and Co.'s altcoin. Yeah, we'll call it an altcoin.
Yeah.
It's a really weird one to explain if you haven't heard of WorldCoin before, but essentially they're looking to create a database on the blockchain that verifies if you're human, which sounds actually quite dystopian when you think about it. And it gets even more creepy. The actual way that you do it is through an iris scanner.
Yeah,
so the idea is
a physical orb, they call it. They have them in different cities, and I guess you go to this location because it's not through your phone or anything. You have to go to this location where it has the orb, scan your iris and your eye, and then it proves your digital identity on the blockchain, and therefore that can be used to prove you're a human in future. So especially in a world that's increasingly becoming AI dominated and people are using AI more and more, and I think it's going to be more difficult to determine what's human and what's AI in the future. And so the idea is that's going to help with that. And we've said before, Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, he created the problem and now he's created a solution. So he's just created a full market. But he's one of these tech oligarchs, in the US that just have ridiculous amounts of power. And just seem to be dominating in every, little pocket that they move into from a business standpoint.
Well, that's how, again, 8Co, which is a company that is recently announced an investment of $270 million into the WorldCoin project, is saying this is not about a crypto token strategy, it's about tech infrastructure. There's a ceiling on the future of AI without true human proof identification, and WorldCoin is integral to the AI build-out. And also notably Tom Lee, who's quite well known for most recently BitMine and also starting the first ETH treasury, similar to MicroStrategy, or Strategy as it is now for Bitcoin. He even came out a while back saying that, even industries like advertising, it's going to get to a point where they need to identify what's a bot, what's a human, and they would pay a premium just to be able to target humans if they could.
Yeah.
So it's just a really interesting concept that we have to get to this point. We need to differentiate who's a bot and who's a human. Quite creepy, right?
Yeah. But WorldCoin seems to be doing well.
Well, they're doing well for now. So, we'll have to see how that keeps going. But it seems to be, again, like you said, they've created the problem. Now there's the solution. So, people keep buying into that idea. Yeah,
that's one of those ones that has just been so volatile. Like, it seems to have these massive pumps. Like, we're seeing 82% in the last week. And I think when it launched, it had a huge pump. But, some people have got on at the top and it had this massive dump. And then the AI boom at the end of last year, obviously goes up. So, that one's interesting. It just seems to be super volatile, both up and down.
And we'll see if, I wonder if this brings a bit of eyes and ears back to the AI space, because exactly what you said, it's gone quiet for quite some time. So the likes of Render, I remember, like a year ago, was just like a weekly runner. Some other key callouts that I'm seeing that are performing quite well relative to the rest of the market, the Pump.Fun token, Pump. Most notably, that one was sort of doused a little bit because Bonk.Fun was overtaking it in terms of revenues. So that's also flipped the script a little bit. Pudgy Penguins, so Pengu token, 21% in the last 7 days, as well as Dogecoin, 17%. So again, that meme coin theme still holding. And then Hyperliquid, up 18% in the last 7 days. That seems to be the one out of the top 20 that seems to be showing the most amount of relative strength. So again, Hype's one we've been watching for quite some time. So good to see that keep going right now.
Well, let's unpack this report.
And
so I really like looking at reports from these bigger firms because they obviously have the resources and the capital to actually put a lot of money into doing proper research. And they have teams of people. It's not just, a crypto influencer, doing his own independent research and delivering a video. So whenever there's, a big report coming out, we'll do our best to unpack it. So you don't have to go through, pages and pages of a PDF. We'll just try and give you the high level notes. But this one comes from Bitwise. So Bitwise, I think you said at the start, is an asset manager in the US based out of San Francisco. They have one of the larger Bitcoin ETFs on the market. I think they even might have an ETH one as well. So I guess what I want to say is there is preface that these guys, I guess, have a vested interest in crypto.
So they're trying to sell it to their clients.
Exactly. So there may be a touch of bias, but I also think at the end of the day, it would hurt them to, just be pulling numbers out of somewhere. So I think this report was actually presented quite well and obviously had a lot of work go into it. So I guess the key stat or the key projection from this is they're calling a base case prediction. So that's like a lower end prediction for Bitcoin by 2035 is $1.3 million US. So that's like nearing the $2 million AUD mark in a 10-year time frame. So that from here would be a 28.3% annual growth rate, which seems like a lot, but if you compare it to a 5-year annual growth rate from the last 5 years, we'd be looking at 63.8%. So it's obviously diminishing from there, but obviously we expect that when Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger.
I think that is pretty conservative because even like Strategy, so Michael Saylor's company, I think their conservative benchmark was a 35% compounded annual growth rate.
Yeah, exactly.
So
if you look at the 10-year annual growth rate, it's 82.5%. So from 10 years to 5 years, it dropped from 82% to 63%, which is, do the maths on a percentage drop, but like the drop that we're going to see from in the next 10 years is, almost half or, well over half from the last 5 years, which is interesting. Another call they made is Bitcoin volatility will continue to decline. I don't think there's any surprises there as Bitcoin continues to mature, particularly, as we see more institutions and even governments adopting Bitcoin. It's, they're less likely to be offloading Bitcoin when they, get a bit spooked by the market. And naturally, when a coin has a higher market cap, it's harder to move both up and down.
Correct.
The last big call out they made is they expect low correlation between Bitcoin and stocks and bonds over the next decade. So I think we've seen like the correlation between, crypto, in particular Bitcoin, and traditional markets like stocks and bonds decreasing in the last sort of 1 to 5 years, and they expect that to continue to decline. And they see that as making Bitcoin a tool for diversification, right? When gold is running or when stocks are running, like Bitcoin might not be doing the same, but it's the inverse, right? So they're kind of suggesting it as a tool for diversifying your portfolio. You want to have, assets across a number of different markets, right? Including crypto, commodities, stocks, real estate.
Yep.
So they're saying that, the correlation is going to diminish. The reasons they explain for these sort of projections is institutional investors are expected to allocate between 1% and 5% of their portfolio to Bitcoin in the coming decade. So when we think about it, that's huge, right?
Yep.
It's really only become like an accessible avenue via the ETFs in the last sort of
that's
1.5 years.
They just weren't able to get exposure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've already seen it be, the most rapidly successful ETFs in history, right? And so they expect institutions of all across the world to allocate 1% to 5% of their portfolio to Bitcoin. They say that's about $100 trillion market, which is massive, right? So if you look at 1.5% or 1% to 5%, that's about $5 trillion coming into Bitcoin in the next 10 years. So absolutely massive. The other reasons they highlight is obviously limited supply. Bitcoin has, a max cap of 21 million Bitcoins by, we're probably going to see that by 2140, so about 100 years' time. No, surprises there. We know that Bitcoin was built to be an asset that doesn't have this huge inflation that we see with fiat currencies.
Yep.
And then the last reason they make is US debt will erode the purchasing power of the US dollar and increase demand for non-fiat hedges like gold or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. So I think like the reliability of the US dollar is expected to diminish according to this report. People are going to start seeing Bitcoin or gold as a more favorable asset to hold.
Even on the weekend, like I was at a bit of a party, bit of a shindig. And even speaking to people about the whole idea of, I don't know why, but, couple of drinks and you start talking about monetary debasement.
Of course. It's naturally in your 30s, you always do that.
Goes, right? But even just the idea, because I was just getting questions asked, is like, oh, you're in crypto, why are you in crypto? And then I tried to take it back to something they could relate to, like, oh, do you understand how money works? And like a lot of people just don't understand that. If you have $100 today, it's $96 worth of purchasing power within 1 to 2 years, or even every year, right? So that's with like a 4% base rate of inflation, which is a bit more than what we have now in Australia, but you can't stop it. Like, it's just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then one thing I want to call out, just another interesting note they made, is they expect the Bitcoin 4-year cycle to no longer be relevant from now on. So for anyone that doesn't know, we've typically looked at a Bitcoin 4-year cycle from the moment the Bitcoin halving occurs. And that's when, new Bitcoin entering the market is halved. So less supply entering the market that we mentioned before, which typically has resulted in, a lot of bullish market sentiment and Bitcoin's price going higher. Then that's typically followed by, 2 years of really positive sentiment and prices going up, followed by prices going down, right? And it's what we've known since the dawn of crypto, right?
Yep.
But they expect that to change for reasons mentioned before, like institutions making it a more mature market.
Well, it's really interesting because if you look at Google search trends for Bitcoin, it's mainly these sort of, institutions and corporates that are really doing the majority of the buying still, it seems. Retail's not even here.
A lot of Australians would already be onboarded in crypto, so they wouldn't be Googling for Bitcoin. They might just go to their Swyftx app to, look at the price or to trade it. So I also take Google Trends as a bit of a pinch of salt, just because I think we've already seen a huge influx of people already in crypto. But I do still think we will see an increase in that trend of, retail coming in when prices are really going ballistic, right? It's just naturally human psychology to get
just
FOMO.
The best advertising.
Exactly. It really is.
Like the 4-year cycle thing's always a bit of a weird one. I feel like I'm still in that camp of like, I'd like to see it before I have to believe it. Like you reading that, does that mean you're going to do anything different? Like, are you going to be holding for longer or...
Look, I think we've gotten to a stage now where we haven't fully had a bull market that we've seen in the past. And historically, if we were to see that bull market like we did, then I would be like, the 4-year market is definitely going to play out. But we haven't really seen, the absolute euphoria that we saw in 2021 or 2017. So, and we're entering a phase where we typically see the market, have a correct and then we see a bear market. We'd see that after November this year if it was to follow historical cycles, correct?
Yes and no. Like, it's more a case of when Bitcoin actually tops, the rest of the market then goes wild. So if you have a look at previous cycles, you'll see we like peaked like in 2020, 2021-ish, like early in that year, like January, I think, or December, like the first peak happened, and you had your second peak in November of 2021. And what happened was every time we saw like a sell-off, everything capitulated. But then every time the market recovered, Bitcoin went up 100%. But it was altcoins that were the majority of the movement was there, because there's a lot of reasons you could think about it. The market's already like, oh, well, Bitcoin's too expensive. I need to find it an altcoin. So they prefaced altcoins over Bitcoin. But it's also just a classic rotation. Like, Bitcoin tanked because people took profits. Like, essentially the steppers stepped in. There weren't enough buyers in with size to keep prices going higher. Like, it's just that simple. So then even though those bigger whales, or whatever you want to call it, people that took profits, they were just normally going to take more of a risk in altcoins anyway. Like, that's just historically what we've seen. So again, I'd still be looking for Bitcoin to top out, find a place where it plateaus, be a bit more cautious, and then just watch those recoveries from there to see if altcoins take off again.
But would you see the end of the year as, say, the market topping out potentially?
Q4, yeah. I'm still looking at that as a topping point. And I'm never going to sell the top. So for me, it's like if prices start moving aggressively to the upside in Q4, I'll be just taking some size off. Of my like longer term spot holdings for sure.
I definitely think it's important not to lose sight of the 4-year cycle, because as you said, like we just don't know, and until we see it, then I would still be looking at historical cycles to give a bit of an indication of where things could go.
Just to finish that, I think the only thing that's different this time is, for the first time, politics are having a bigger drive on market movements than anything else we've ever seen before. And I know for a fact that the Fed Chair, Jerome Powell, steps down next year, and Trump's boy has put in whoever he picks next year.
Trump's going to put in someone who just says interest rates to zero.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't know. So what if like all these politics and policies come in, and it's just like, well, all of a sudden just the risk appetite is just melt up mode for another 12 months, then of course we won't get a 4-year cycle.
So like macro is looking, better and better by the day. And then also regulatory movements are happening, and to the positive side as well, which you have a little story about. Yes,
we do. Since the exodus of Gary Gensler, previous chair, we've now seen Paul Atkins come in, very just libertarian, very pro-crypto. He's more about just, hey, let's just see progress. Let's not hinder. They've also come out most recently and just hinted on the idea that they're putting a crypto revamp on a priority list. Regulation is coming to the point where they're even speculating that we're going to see crypto tokens or assets end up on stock exchanges. And again, that's going to be a huge theme to look at as well. Like, all right, well, what ends up on a stock exchange? Because obviously we've seen the success of the ETFs as products. If there are products also available on crypto traditional exchanges, but also these exchanges here, like normal stockbroking platforms, that's just introducing those tokens to a whole new group of users that didn't have to do anything different to be onboarded into crypto. Just suddenly appeared as an option that they could then purchase. So
that's huge.
So I think even understanding, well, what's the play here behind the scenes? Like, is this just a move to sort of put a bigger moat around, the likes of Wall Street? So, when crypto is regulated, they're not seeing trade go away from the traditional exchanges. I think they're quite concerned about that. Because if there is going to be this arms race to get as much crypto as you can at some point, obviously Wall Street doesn't want to lose out. So, you can kind of see they might be just building a few rules in the game to keep themselves afloat potentially, and not any of the smaller fish, like the smaller exchanges, take up a majority of that market share.
So are you saying that we could see the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana on the New York Stock Exchange?
Well, that's what it's potentially hinting at. We don't know the exact details, but it is looking to at least provide clarity on how tokens will be sort of classified, and then that classification system will then impact what can happen next, right?
Yeah, interesting. And typically we see Australia follow suit. I think we had Ravi Sharma on here that said Australia is a fast follower of the US. So typically we'll change our regulations based on what the US are doing swiftly after what they've done. But, they're making some pretty strategic and big moves. So whether we do or not, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's it's just crazy. Like, just to be here after all these years, right? It's just happening like just so quickly now.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is nuts, hey. I wanted to touch on quickly. We don't have a huge amount to unpack here, but Chainalysis, which is, what would you call them? Like a on-chain
data platform.
On-chain data platform.
Yep.
Often, we use them for, security and anti-money laundering purposes. But they released their Crypto Global Index, which looks at, which countries have the largest amount of crypto adoption, which countries are using crypto, what people are buying with fiat currencies, those sorts of things. And interestingly, India ranked number 1 in terms of crypto adoption, followed by the US. And I guess that's not a huge surprise because that is not like per capita. That's just by the numbers.
Yeah.
So India have the largest population in the world. US is probably 3rd behind China.
Yeah.
But then it broke it down by population, right? So, and more of like a weighted figure. And it was surprisingly all like these developing countries across the world.
I swear we've talked about that once before. Like we don't see it in Australia, the real use case for things like stablecoins. But
yeah,
man, if you're in a country where
absolutely
you can't take the money out of the bank, of course you'd use stablecoins.
Yeah, exactly. And Australia wasn't even in the top 20 of either like the first metric we mentioned where India is number 1 or the by population metric. So I think we've often said Australia is one of the leaders in crypto adoption, but this Chainalysis report says otherwise. So got some catching up to do.
We do.
But one other thing that they mentioned in this that I thought was interesting is they have a breakdown of the assets purchased with fiat currency. So these are people, onboarding their fiat currency, whether it be AUD, USD, the euro, and like what are they buying directly with that fiat currency. So this doesn't include like trading crypto to crypto, but BTC was number 1. No real surprises there. It breaks it down by categories. So like layer 1, stable coins, altcoins, low liquidity tokens, meme coins, DeFi. So it's some of the, the categories and narratives that we've talked about at length. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
No, it adds up, right?
Yeah.
Tells the story. Now I think I better give the insights that I promised.
Please.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, meme coins can seem like a pretty hard place to navigate. And one way that I think what crypto does really well that you won't see in any other industry is transparency. As much as that sounds weird to say, it's actually very, very true. With crypto, with on-chain data, you can actually see, well, what coins are being purchased and with what sort of propensity. Like, is there a huge like accumulation on certain coins versus others? You can definitely do that. So we'll include in the show notes today the links to a website, but you can follow them on X as well, which is all I do, and just put alerts on, but they're called HolderScan, so @HolderScan. And what they do is basically put up like a weekly figure on what coins are being accumulated the most. So they break that down in token counts as well as just US dollar changes. And you start to see some pretty interesting trends if you just track this every week. So for example, we're seeing a lot of price movements in the likes of Bonk, Pump, Pepe, and Pengu. They're the top 4 on that list in the last 7 days have been accumulated. So again, if you're just watching these trends, you can start to understand, okay, well, at the end of the day, like we said, Bitcoin tops when people are selling and not buying. So if you can work out what's being bought right now, again, we're looking just on chain data here, you can kind of get an idea of, okay, are you joining the party where there's lots of people jumping in as well? Again, and prices are at, these sort of lows that we're seeing. We're at multi-month lows right now. That might be something of more of a palatable risk for you if you're concerned about, oh, well, I don't want to buy something and be chasing it. Because technically, if we're still at, multi-month lows and we're seeing price move relatively well to what the spot buying is, it's a pretty good indication that there's still probably room to move higher on those coins.
Yeah.
But again, it's not a guarantee. But again, it's a really, really good and effective way that I use quite frequently, which honestly, you couldn't do probably that easily last cycle that you can do this time around that I think a lot of people may not be aware of. I think it's a really good one to check out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What sort of opportunities are we seeing on there?
So again, it does show Bonk, Pump, Pepe, and Pengu as the top 4. But this looks at cross-chain trends as well. So we're looking at Solana and Ethereum. We do generally tend to see more meme coin activity on-chain.
Yeah.
You tend to see things like Bitcoin and Ethereum get traded on traditional exchanges, so you won't get too many insights in that front. But you can even see new and upcoming coins, what's seeing a bit more of demand than others. I won't read them out because they are just way more speculative. If something's being bought this week and it's only been around for a week, you don't know if it's going to be there next week. So just always have that in the back of your head. If you are going to jump into these things, it can still be very mercenary-like we've talked about recently. Again, it's a no-nonsense way of understanding the market too. You're not paying for something. You're not overlaying some complicated tool. It's literally just knowing what got the most amount of buying power in the last 7 days. Super simple. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I'm really curious to see what wins out of those meme coins you mentioned, like Bonk, Pepe. What were the other ones?
Bonk, Pump, Pepe, Pengu, and if we go to the next one, Fartcoin. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
See, I do see, like, obviously, if we see, a meme coin mania, I do see them all having, success and their time in the spotlight. But I am very curious to see, like, which one actually does the best and wins that sort of market share. And I think it's probably out of Bonk and Pepe.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the end of the day, like, meme coins can be very sort of culturally driven, which is a weird phrase in itself, but it's almost just like, what team are you on?
Yeah.
It kind of is like the feeling that I think we'll get as things start to heat up.
Yeah.
So, we'll just see which one's the loudest in the room.
Well, I guess Pepe's got like the ETH narrative behind it.
Yeah.
It would be competing with Shiba Inu, which is also on ETH, but Bonk is it's probably the leader on Solana. So I guess, head to head.
Yeah, I even saw Dog with Hat climbing up the ranks too.
Yeah.
Famously covered the Las Vegas Dome.
That's right.
Lest we forget.
Yeah.
But yet again, so you just want to be a bit careful and risk adjust if you are looking at these assets. But that's it from me.
Great insight, mate. Let's wrap it up.
Mate, how's the first one back?
Feels all right. I think we'll improve from there. A bit rusty.
Not bad.
Bit rusty, but we'll get back.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you again next week.
Thank you.